There are a lot of new bills that were passed by the last Texas legislature, and a lot of questions about them. Perhaps none more than concealed carry. When can you conceal carry? Who can conceal carry? When can you not? District Attorney, Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzales, gracious enough to join us this evening. Mr. DA, thank you for being here. First off, let's just simplify this whole thing. Who can carry a handgun right now in the state of Texas?
Thank you for having me, Steve. And the problem is there's no simple way to discuss this. This is a very complicated bill and now law, and it's very confusing, but I'll do the best I can. So basically, before September 1, the only type of people that were able to carry a weapon were those that had concealed handgun permits. Now, after September 1, you can carry without that permit as long as you otherwise are eligible. That is to say, you have to be 21 years or older. You can't have any convictions. Obviously, if you're a felon, that's going to prevent you from carrying a gun, but also one of 4 different misdemeanors: assault, terroristic threat, deadly conduct, and another offense involving using a weapon. And you can be engaged in any criminal activity with that. So generally speaking, those are the parameters. Now, what the law does say is that you have a right to carry it. The problem is going to be interpreting, well, what happens when you're carrying the gun? The law says that you cannot display the weapon if you don't have it in a holster or it's not concealed. So if you've got a gun, for example, and by the way, before, you might have been able to transport your weapon in your vehicle. Now you can't leave your weapon sitting on the seat next to you without a holster. It has to be holstered or concealed. So generally, those are the parameters. You still can't carry weapons into prohibited places. For example, any place whose business relies on more than 51% of alcohol sale for their business on a premises. For example, the bars and the restaurants that do that kind of work. But for example, your typical HEBs, those kinds of establishments, you can't. You may be able to do that. You also can't use a weapon going into nursing homes, hospitals, and obviously the airport. If you're going to transport your weapon at the airport, make sure you put it in a hard case. Make sure you separate it from your ammunition. And you also can't do what I call GWI. You can't possess a gun while intoxicated. Okay. So those are, generally speaking, those are the circumstances under which you may be able to carry a weapon, but clearly there are certain types of classes of people that aren't going to be able to do it.
Can businesses, can some place like a private business ban you from bringing a firearm into their place of business?
Well, sure. They can post a notice saying that you are prohibited from carrying a weapon. And what may happen in that instance is that they have noticed that you're prohibited from carrying a weapon. They may call the police. If the police investigate, they may decide that you've committed trespass. But I think you may have a defense. So what I'm getting at is they may be able to call the police. The police may end up arresting you. You may end up being charged. But I think you may have an ultimate defense if it's that kind of a place where you are authorized to carry a weapon. And so it may be a question that you may ultimately be able to avoid a conviction, but initially you may end up being charged.
So we have the website up there for where people can go actually read the stipulations laid out in this law. And you said a lot of information there, and while you were talking, we showed some bullet points of who cannot legally carry and where. So I think we can continue to show that because I know it is kind of confusing here. Do you think that there's been some confusion over this law because there's sort of a misinterpretation that concealed carry means anyone can now carry?
Well, sure. And I think part of it is because before, the only people that could carry were those that had concealed weapons. Now, with the open carry, the presumption is that everybody can carry a weapon, and it's wide open, and it's the Wild West. Well, we still have we still have to follow certain rules. For example, even if you have a right to carry your weapon, law enforcement may have a right to temporarily seize your weapon while they're determining if you have a right to carry it. For example, what comes to mind is someone who may look like he's 16 years old and turns out to be 22, unless and until the officer can determine that that person is old enough to carry a weapon, he might hold on to it and then later give it back to that person. What I would recommend is that whenever you encounter law enforcement and you are carrying a weapon, that you cooperate with them. Let them conduct their investigation. Let them determine if you do fall within the category of people that can carry a weapon. Then you get your gun back and you go on your way.
Let's move. I want to switch subjects while we have you here, Mr. District Attorney. I want to talk about the backlog of cases that we're seeing because there's no in-person jury trials. That'll change next week. How bad is the backup at your office, and have you ever seen anything like this before?
Well, the answer, first of all, let me tell you that I've never seen anything like this. I've been in practice now 33 years on both sides of the docket, and I have never seen this sort of a situation where you're dealing with a pandemic and it has created the backlog that it has. Fortunately, we're all working together, the courts, the judges, the DA's office, the defense bar, everyone trying to get back up and running. So yes, it has been quite a challenge, and there are a number of cases waiting to go to trial. I know we have several victims of crime that are waiting for their day in court. I would just ask them to please be patient. We are going to give you your day in court. We are going to bring you justice. And so, yes, we're starting up next week. We will be ready. Again, we've been working with the administrative judge. We've been working with the courts, and we will be ready to start it back up next week.
In person, resuming next week. Bexar County DA Joe Gonzales, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
We'll be right back.